In episode 3, the group has the soup terrorist, aka Kamiko's brother, on a boat, and they're just waiting word from Grace. And Huey is still really pissed off at Billy, which causes Billy to actually do something he never does, go up and apologize. And instead of just accepting the apology, Huey ends up punching him back in the face. He's still pissed off. The two are then separated, and Billy gets a phone call from Grace saying, "Sit tight, they're coming to get him." And then she asks if he's ever heard of an old soup called Liberty. He asks, "What's that got to do with it?" And she says, "I'm not sure yet." The conversation then turns to Kamiko and the fact that the soup terrorist is her brother. And Grace asks, "Do you think that's going to compromise her?" And Billy says, "Well, if it does, I'll neutralize her." And when he gets off the phone, he realizes that Frenchie overheard this conversation. And Frenchie wasn't the only one, because so did Kamiko. And even though Kamiko's just learning English, it seemed like she knew what he was saying. Kamiko then heads downstairs to see her brother, and her brother wants to be let go, saying that the Americans are just going to torture him. But Kamiko says, "I won't let them do that. I'll protect you." And his whole thing is, how are you going to do that? She hasn't really figured that out, and she just gets up and leaves. So while Billy and his group are awaiting the CIA to pick up the soup terrorist, the Seven are busy listening to a pitch about their new movie. And the movie is going to be based on how they all came together. And when I say the Seven, I mean everybody but obviously the Deep, who's in Sandusky, Ohio, and Homelander, because Homelander is still with Becca Butcher and Ryan. And he's trying to convince Ryan to use the powers that he has. So he takes him up on the roof and is trying to get him to fly, but Ryan's scared, saying, "I don't know how to do that." Gets to the point where he actually throws him off the roof, thinking that instincts would kick in, but they don't, and he just falls. And Becca runs out protecting her son, and Homelander says, "You're turning him into a pussy." He grabs Becca's arms, and that's when Ryan's instincts kick in, using his powers. And Homelander is thrilled. Finally, the kid is showing something. But Ryan and Becca, they're not. And Ryan yells at him, "I hate you, I just want you to go away." So as I said, the rest of the Seven, that includes Stormfront, Starlight, the A-Train, Queen Maeve, they're all listening to this movie pitch. And Stormfront has an issue with the way that the women are being portrayed. And Ashley steps in and says, "Homelander really likes this script." And Stormfront says, "That's great. Where is he again?" But she doesn't get an answer because Ashley gets a text message that leads her to bolt out of the room. She finds Edgar. She starts questioning him if it's true. And the it is the fact that the news has finally gotten the word that superheroes are not born, but yet made. And this is a huge story that Ashley's not getting answers on because Edgar and his team are going into a meeting to discuss how they're going to handle it. But word has gotten out globally, and that includes the Seven. Now, word has also gotten to Huey on the boat, and he is pumped, thinking that Starlight and him have done it. The news is trying to get an answer from Vought, also trying to get in touch with Jonah Vogelbaum, the former CSO, who has basically gone into seclusion, and he's not giving a comment. So Huey calls up Annie, tries to get her on the phone, but gets a voicemail and leaves her a message. And Huey's taking credit for it, but also saying Annie had a large part to do with it. And Mother's Milk gives him a massive hug. But when Billy comes in, all he says is, "Nice one." And even Mother's Milk says, "That's all you got? You can't even give the kid props? He just did what we've been trying to do for years." But yeah, he's not ready to celebrate because he's got a soup terrorist below deck. And now the new mission is to get him to the CIA because things could go wrong at any moment. So with time to kill, Frenchie heads down below deck to talk to Kamiko's brother because he really wants to help her. He's also noticed that the language that they speak isn't like any form of sign language he's ever seen before. And you'll learn that Kamiko's brother actually knows English, but Kamiko stopped talking entirely when her parents were killed. And when they were in the village, they developed their own kind of language to help each other communicate and survive. And Frenchie asks if he can teach it to him, but he's tied up, he's about to get handed over, he's not really in the mood to help Frenchie, even though Frenchie's bought him chips and a drink. And little does Frenchie know that Kamiko's brother's been able to get one finger out of the duct tape binding that they've tied him up in. And that's all he needs. And he's able to use that finger / his powers to crush up the soda can and saw his way out of the duct tape. And as he's busy sawing himself out, the group is joined by the NYPD because the boat that they're on has been reported stolen. And Billy is trying to lie his way out of it, but that's when Kamiko's brother comes up from below deck and uses his powers to literally throw the NYPD chopper into the ocean. And as Edgar sits in his ivory tower trying to figure out what to do, he's gotten footage of what that soup terrorist just did, and he's got an idea. He's going to try to use the Seven to get out of this PR nightmare. So he calls them all in for a meeting that includes Homelander, who just arrived, and he tells them that they're needed right now. And Homelander rallies the troops, getting them to go, but also telling him, piss off, that they're going to do it for each other and not for Vought. And whether this was all a stunt or he was being real, it works, and the group heads off, try to find the soup terrorist. And another person who heads off is the Deep, because back in Sandusky, Ohio, Carol has gotten word from Alistair, the guy who runs that kind of cult church that he's now in, that it's the Deep's time to get back into the Seven. So, unbeknownst to the rest of the Seven, the Deep is also going to meet them there. Now, of course, Billy and his group have no idea what's on the way, and they get a phone call from Grace saying, "We're not coming to get you anymore. You have to go to a safe house." So, with no other choice, the group starts driving the boat to the safe house, but they start getting attacked by sharks. And as they get closer and closer to the shore, that's when the Deep appears, riding a whale. And he actually goes so far as to beach the whale, thinking that Billy would slow down, but Billy doesn't. Billy drives his boat right through this whale, killing it. And it leaves Huey once again covered in blood. It throws the Deep back, and the entire group heads into the storm drains to try to find the safe house. And that includes Huey after a lot of convincing from Mother's Milk. They figured now that the Deep's there, it's only a matter of time before the rest of the 7 show up. So eventually the 7 do arrive, and to their surprise, they find the Deep there. The Deep explains what happened, and one person that is not excited to see the Deep is Starlight. He immediately apologizes for everything that he did to her, saying that he's going to work his entire life to make it right, but she doesn't want to hear that. And Stormfront says, "Oh my god, did you just join the Church of the Collective? You're an idiot." But Deep reminds her to be easy on the religious persecution. The group then gets their eye on the prize, and that is to get in the tunnels and find the Soup Terrorist. And Homelander says, if anyone sees him, he's mine. The Deep starts to walk in the tunnel, but Homelander says, no man, hang back a bit. Still have some work to do with the ladies, but you'll be back in the 7 in no time, don't worry. So the group heads into the tunnels, they spread out, and the A-Train is still dealing with heart issues, although he's concealing it from everybody. And as Huey is walking aimlessly through the tunnel, he sees a flashlight coming towards him, so he runs and hides, but then he realizes, oh my god, it's Starlight. And he excitedly comes out from behind the wall and says, you got my messages, because he's been blowing up her phone. But not quite, she knocks him down. And Homelander comes and finds Huey on the ground and says, you gotta be kidding me, this guy again? Starlight tries to plead the case that she didn't know he was there, and he says, enough. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to kill him. And Annie starts making excuses, saying he's wanted, we should take him in. And Homelander says, no, we should, you're right. I want you to kill him. And Mother's Milk, Frenchie, Billy, Kamiko, they're all listening to this from behind a wall, hearing it go down. And it gets real when Homelander tells her, okay, here's the deal. Either you kill him or I kill both of you. And it looks like it's going to be curtains for Huey. But that is when Billy comes out from behind the shadows to distract Homelander. And the group uses their new secret weapon, Kamiko's brother. He brings the entire tunnel down on Homelander. He then uses the rocks to escape so he won't get caught by the CIA, and Kamiko goes running after him. In Mother's Milk, Huey and Billy get the hell out of there. Kamiko then gets caught up to her brother, and the two start having a conversation, but they get interrupted by Stormfront. And Stormfront starts throwing them around with her powers, taking out an entire residential apartment building. But Kamiko and her brother aren't the only ones she's taken out. She's taking out civilians as well. That is allowing Kamiko and her brother to get away, but Kamiko ends up getting stopped, and her and Stormfront get into a fight. And Stormfront is getting the better of Kamiko, which causes her brother to come back for her. Although Stormfront completely dismantles him, breaking his arms and snapping his neck. And Kamiko is hiding, but she's watching it all go down. Homelander shows up seeing the body of the dead Soup and tells Stormfront, I told you he was mine. And she looks at him and says, well, you snooze, you lose, and walks away. The 7 then head off for a publicity appearance, handing out supplies to those who were left homeless from the destruction of Stormfront. And Edgar gives a statement that is read on the TV that it's an unfortunate day, but they're looking into the claims. And then he shifts gears to Stormfront, who is front and center on the TV, clapping it up for the, quote, real heroes. You know, the people she just left homeless. And Homelander is giving her a death stare, because usually that's him. And it seems like Stormfront has the ear of Stan Edgar. And Homelander isn't the only one who's given her a death stare, because Kamiko, who has made it back to the Cash for Gold basement along with Huey, Mother's Milk, and Billy, has revenge in her eyes as she's watching this press conference. Thank you so much for watching this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel. If you don't see the next video up in the corner, don't worry, I'll get it up in a couple days. Hit thumbs up if you liked the video, hit thumbs down if you didn't, and be nice in the comments section.